Voters who live in the City of Newcastle will each receive 3 ballot papers, one to elect 12 aldermen, another to choose the Lord Mayor, and the third a referendum question.
The purpose of the poll is whether or not to reintroduce the ward system for electing aldermen to the City of Newcastle.
Voters are required to place a yes or a no in the appropriate box. 49 candidates have nominated for the much sought-after position of alderman. Ballot papers must be numbered 1 to 12. When voting for the Lord Mayor, the number 1 is required beside the name of a candidate. Other preferences may also be numbered.
Voters on Saturday, the 14th, must read their ballot papers. The directions for voting are contained on the ballot papers.
In other council elections in the Hunter, voters will elect a mayor and alderman if they live in a city or municipality, and councillors if they live in a shire. Polling booths will open at 8 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
A massive crowd was at the number 2 sports ground for the Battle of the Upper Hunter, with a dust and slight breeze making it difficult for everyone. And after 4.5 minutes, the underdogs were on the board. Singleton continued to dominate early yards and the pack was putting it to the Maitland forwards. 4 minutes from the break, Singleton scored some much needed points. Singleton led 9-0, but right on the buzzer, the Blacks hit back. The second half was dominated by a Maitland pack that just took over and resulted in Frisch kicking a penalty that made it 9-6. Another penalty by Frisch levelled the scores, and then Frisch gave Maitland the lead with a 50-metre field goal. Singleton had a chance to level the scores, but it was wide, and then the Blacks put it beyond doubt. And the final score at the siren, Maitland 18, Singleton 9. It was all rosebuds in the early part of the match, and David Bock was menacing the defence, and his turn and cross was struck superbly by Wells, pushed away by Oberhauser, and Robertson's header cleared everything. Oberhauser was called into action a few minutes later, saving Dorman's header that nearly snuck through. Just before half-time, Weston sprung to life, Kavanagh to King, but Dorman denied the Bears, and it was still 0-0. The second half was one of missed opportunities for Rosebud. In the 48th minute, Wells rifled a shot, but it was parried away by the brilliant Oberhauser. Then Bock, who was unstoppable up front, made the lanky keeper stretch, and he somehow kept Weston in the match. 20 minutes later, Adamstown attacked once more, and Oberhauser semi-fumbled, but Chapman's shot hit the upright, and still no score. And with 3 minutes remaining, one last chance for the Rosebud, and David Bock will have nightmares about a chap called Oberhauser.
Flames illuminated the night sky as a small army of firefighters entered their first bout in what is tipped to be a treacherous summer for bushfires. A major outbreak along Wilfred Barrett Drive at Nora Head tested brigades in protecting homes as flames scorched backyard fences. The heat melted fittings on fire trucks. Residents were advised to leave their homes against the backdrop of an inferno. Some chose to stay to do what they could to protect their properties. The flames engulfed more than 200 hectares of bushland, and some firefighters suffered smoke inhalation before the battle was won. Mopping up work continued through the day. Another major blaze swept through 400 hectares of bush at Killingworth and Wakefield on the western side of Lake Macquarie. Strong winds fanned the flames across Wakefield Road, forcing its closure to traffic. Brigades set backburns near the West Wallsend Colliery, and firefighters spent today extinguishing a tailings heap at the Rhondda Colliery. The bushfire danger throughout the Hunter is extreme, with a total fire ban in place until midnight tonight. The ban has been extended for a further 24 hours for the mid-north coast. Despite pleas from fire controllers for caution, brigades were sent out again this afternoon to what are thought to be two deliberately lit fires around a wobber. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.
The table was set by some of our best chefs and apprentices. The feast of hors d'oeuvres through to desserts were judged by a panel of 6 experts. Quinton Underhill is a member of the national team which will represent Australia at the Cooking Olympics in Frankfurt next year, and the head judge of this competition.
The standard this year is incredible. Every year, now being the 7th year, the standard has increased.
About 100 dishes were whipped up by approximately 60 chefs. A gold medal went to this centrepiece, sculpted from margarine. Food colouring was added.
These colourings are exact representation of that fruit. So like the banana looks like the banana, it's got the brown spots on it, and the custard apple has got the right shapes to it.
Another gold medal went to a chef at the Country Comfort Motel in Tamworth for this creation.
He's used different ingredients, and then he's executed it really well by finishing off with the aspic and the plate presentation. So it's got a great selling point. People say, gee, I would really like to eat that.
With such culinary delights in abundance, the judges weren't tempted. This competition was not based on taste, but on presentation. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Once a showpiece of Newcastle, Latex House is now a vandalised crash pad for the homeless. For months, Newcastle City Council has been unsuccessfully asking the building's owner, Theo Morris, to board up the entrance and windows. But now, tired of waiting for a response, the council has signed a contract with a local builder to close up Latex House using 20mm thick marine plywood.
It's fairly solid construction because we really don't want it to be vandalised or opened up again.
The cost of boarding up Latex House is expected to exceed $10,000. Mr Stewart says while that will be charged to the property owner, the ratepayer doesn't escape for free. He says there's still all the time the council staff spent in trying to get Mr Morris to comply with its notices.
And that's why it's all the more of a disgrace that people can sort of have these sort of buildings and totally ignore the people.
The Newcastle City Mission has also lost out over Latex House. It was hoping to set up a crisis accommodation centre in the abandoned building with what its superintendent thought was Mr Morris's approval.
Well, we've had to shelve that because we haven't heard from the owner, Theo Morris, and we have written to him and faxed him and phoned him, and we've heard nothing for the past 2.5 months.
Mr Gordon says the mission has changed its plans and bought the former Wood Street Theatre for $200,000. The building will be converted into a crisis accommodation centre, including flats for 2 families and a dormitory.
We're hoping that we can still provide the same sort of service we were going to do at Latex House, but now we can do it on a smaller, more intimate basis.
The mission's new centre should be operating by the end of the month. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
This bloke will light up the area for us.
Ross Spender is recovering at home today, his arm in a sling and numerous bruises across his back. Last night, the 36-year-old owner-manager of the Charlestown Indoor Sports Centre on Hillsborough Road closed shop at 11 o'clock and took the day's takings to an isolated car park near the centre.
I leant down to put the key in the door lock and a sudden pain hit me in the middle of the back.
Ross Spender's attacker struck him several times with an aluminium baseball bat, breaking his arm as he warded off the blows.
He was talking to me. I didn't comprehend it, but I knew what he wanted, and I just threw the money at him, and they bolted after they got the money.
The men fled on foot into scrub to the southern side of Hillsborough Road. Police called in a tracker dog to assist in the search, but in last night's blustery conditions, the scent was quickly lost. Police say Ross is fortunate that the attack wasn't more serious.
Could have been a fatal blow to the forehead, and we are concerned.
I just can't believe the viciousness of the attack, you know, that someone would come along behind someone and swing a baseball bat full onto them.
Police have a description of just one man. He's about 20 years old, 178 centimetres or 5'9" tall. He was wearing a dark sloppy joe and a beanie pulled low over his hair. Anyone with information should call Charlestown Police Station. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Workers were mopping up today, but the NJC certainly didn't clean up yesterday. Despite a record turnout, betting with the on-course tote was only half of what was expected. The reason, a malfunction with the computers.
And we were looking at least 1.5 million yesterday, considering the record crowd. I don't think that was too much to expect. Instead, we held just under 850,000, so it's a big difference.
Taking out expenses, that's a loss to the NJC of about $35,000. The tote is contracted to a private company, AWA Totalisers. AWA confirmed dividend prices were not coming through on time, so punters were not being paid at the usual rate. Queues were lengthening and the money wasn't being reinvested on the next race. While the government has called for a report into the matter, some punters are still short after a successful day at the track.
We've had a number of complaints, in fact more than a number, hundreds this morning, of where they can collect tickets.
The NJC has offered free admittance to Saturday's dogs for punters who are yet to collect, or they can go straight to the NJC office. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Vic Bell was reminiscing today, flicking through sheets of memories from every Newcastle Council meeting since 1962. He keeps every study ever undertaken by Council in this small room at the front of his house, and he knows the ins and outs of every issue ever to confront the city. But last night at the close of counting, the former alderman missed out on a place on Council for the first time in 29 years.
Living in a democracy, I think you accept the decision of the people, but nevertheless, I'm not kidding myself, I'd have loved to be back there.
Vic believes that if the ward system voted on in this election had been in place, he would have succeeded. In his years on council, he's seen a lot of happenings. What were issues decades ago are still relevant today, such as Blackbutt Reserve, rising rates, the civic block development and air pollution.
My delight was the debates on these issues were good debates, and they were something you enjoyed being in. And when the decision was made, there was no personal animosity about it.
But the former alderman is extremely critical of council today and doesn't see things improving in the near future.
Irrespective of anybody outside the Labor group, it'll be jobs for the boys. They'll be going on their own rugged way in respect to that matter. They'll pay no regard to any other alderman on council while they've got the numbers.
At 74 years of age, Vic Bell says he won't run again for council, and while that door may have closed, Vic will always have his memories and his views as a Newcastle citizen.
After 4 days of counting and recounting, Cessnock City Council staff were once again thumbing through the voting slips this afternoon. At stake is the final aldermanic position on the council. Will it go to the ALP's Kerry Hickey or to independent candidate Warren Theo Hazelgrove? Even the two Ward A candidates concede they have no idea which way the new count will swing.
It's line ball at this very moment. And we're both wondering where our future lies, whether it's in local government or not.
I hope there's a winner one way or the other.
The returning officer Colin Cowan called for a recount after Mr Hazelgrove edged over the line with just 3 votes. But incredibly, the result of that recount was a tie.
I'm not aware of any other time when we've had a tied vote. I'm aware of close votes, but no, nothing quite as close as this.
Mr Cowan called the new count on advice from the Electoral Commissioner, and he thinks the chance of another tie is out of the question. But while doing his milk run with a churning stomach, Kerry Hickey revealed he's no stranger to impossibly long odds.
I've already won the lottery once. Well, I shared with 4 other people. 125,000, 100,000 between us.
The luck of Mr Hickey has held out. Only minutes ago, it was announced that due to a complex system of taking new random samples from the last recount, the Milko has won the aldermanic position by a margin of 39 votes. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Most of these men and women have at some stage taken on the daunting task of weight loss. We all know how tempting the refrigerator can be, but these people have faced temptation and won. Lynn Peterkin, this year's Slimmer of the Year runner-up, is 30 kilograms lighter, while Kim Harnett, Slimmer of the Year, lost about 32.5 kilograms in 14 months and 3 dress sizes. And the secret of her success?
Well, it's mainly just watching what you eat and just vegetables, fruit, salads and not eating in between.
And no killer aerobics classes for this lady, just a 20-minute walk to pick up the kids from school each day. She makes it all sound so easy, but willpower is the key.
I think it just, I had enough of being overweight and I just wanted to lose it, and that was it. Once you set your mind and you set a goal and you want to do that, it's pretty easy, yeah.
Architects Killen and Doran unveiled their plans for the 3-storey office block using computer imagery to visualise the finished building as it will stand on the block bordered by King and Newcommon streets in the centre of Newcastle City. The developers believe the project's 1,700 square metres of office space will attract strong interest from business tenants.
What we have is a shortage of very good quality office space, and this provides excellent views over the harbour, has an excellent address, and also provides quite a lot of car parking space underneath.
The office already has one guaranteed tenant, the developer Dr Don Dunlop, whose surgery is already on the site and will be incorporated in the new building. But he and fellow researcher Bernard Fenelon have bigger plans. They want to establish the Hunter Eye Institute, which will be dedicated to research and public education. Both men have collaborated over many years in research through the present clinic and the Newcastle University. They see the new building as a chance to set up an independent centre based on American lines to further medical research into the workings of the human eye. Dr Dunlop says there's still much vital research to be done.
We're only just scratching the surface of our subject, really. As a student, I was bluffed by my teachers into thinking that we knew everything. Now I know, as I get older, we know less and less.
Funding for the centre will come from research grants, office rental and revenue from the eye clinic. Pending council approval for the office block, the computer image will begin turning into reality early next year. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Square for Maloney. There's overlap on the right, but he goes himself, and it's gone in with beauty!
Surely one of the best goals in this year's World Youth Cup belonged to Brad Maloney. He was a star in the midfield for the young Socceroos side that snatched a magnificent 3rd place in that competition. And the good news is he's coming to Newcastle.
He'll sign tonight. He'll sign for 2 years, 2 years minimum. All the players have been encouraged to sign for 2 years minimum, and then of course whatever follows after that obviously depends on success.
The rebuilding of the old Australs ground is almost complete, and so too is the restructuring of the side. Just one spot is yet to be filled, and St George stalwart Craig Moffat is the hot tip.
There's some discussion yet to be done, but Craig is training with us, he's eager to come, and I'm sure that maybe come next week, early next week, Craig will be our 16th player.
Coach Bruce Stowell's recruiting program has been both arduous and rewarding, and he's expecting immediate results.
Very pleased with the quality of players that we've signed, players that not only will be quality on the field but off the field as well, and that's important to me, and hopefully quality enough to give us a top 5 spot in the first year.
In the art world tonight, all eyes will be on the creations and creatures crawling from Glendale High's classrooms. With the theme of the exhibition being Lost in Space, many of the works on display are, not surprisingly, outlandish. Not all the works look like cast extras from Alien. Years 8 and 9 have used Aboriginal and African cultures as inspiration. But Da Vinci would probably be lost in rage at the facelift given to his beloved Mona Lisa. Glendale High's visual arts staff are confident there might be a 21st century version of Picasso lurking among the 400 students who have contributed to the exhibition.
Well, there's kids out there who've really got it, who've developing personal style.
Lost in Space is officially open tonight, and arts enthusiasts can make a re-entry to the exhibition on Sunday.